Hello and welcome to our Halloween broadcast. Ray and I are here in New York City, my favorite city. Well, I guess I should say one of my favorite cities.
One of my favorite too. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Yes, happy Halloween. And we're here in New York. We have been here since Wednesday. On Wednesday, we attended the American Folk Art Museum Fall Benefit and Gala. And it was honoring Lucy and Mike Danziger. And we'd like to thank our gracious hosts, Donna and Marvin Schwartz, for having us. It was at Gotham Hall, and it was absolutely stunning.
Beautiful place, isn't it?
It really is.
Former bank. It's just a beautiful space.
It really is. And I know that they have other events there, and they host weddings there, and all kinds of fun events. So we really enjoyed being there. And if you haven't seen it yet, or if you are ever in New York City, we highly recommend going to the Folk Art Museum. It's across from Lincoln Center, and it's definitely worth the trip. So can't say enough great things about that. So thank you again, Donna and Marvin.
Thank you.
And we are also here because tomorrow we are going to the 34th Annual East Coast Toy Soldier Show in Hackensack, New Jersey, which is not that far from New York City. It's off of Route 4, and the show actually begins, it's from 9 to 3 p.m. tomorrow, and admission is $7 for adults, and children under 12 are free. So we will have a booth there, and we actually, at the end of the broadcast today, we have an announcement of a giveaway. So if you stay tuned and stay on live with us, you'll get to hear about that later on in the broadcast.
Well worth your while.
And we'd also like to thank Bill Lango for putting on the East Coast Toy Soldier Show. You've done a fantastic job the last 34 years, so congratulations to a great show. I know Ray has been going there,
I believe 26 years.
26 years. This will be my third year at the show, and I always enjoy it. So we'll be really looking forward to seeing everyone there tomorrow. And with that being said, what we're going to do tonight is just go over a couple items that we're going to have for sale at our booth tomorrow. So if you're in the area or if you're close by, we'd love for you to stop by and say hello.
There are witches in there. Someone's afraid.
I have
a little
one
kitty
too.
cat.
There's two of them.
They like our little witches here?
I know, they're very cool. So we have some Halloween-themed items in the spirit of the holiday. We have some witches, we have some pumpkin guys, we have a scarecrow. So I am going to bring these up closer to you so you can get a better look at them. This is a dime store figure assortment, and these
are
the witches. They're very cool. They are flying. Their paint's very nice. As you can see, I'm going to show you the bottom. They are holocast. So that's how they were made. And what year were these made, Ray?
Those are mainly from the 1930s. Most of these manufacturers produced from about the late 20s up until the 60s. But the real heyday was right before World War II. The figures you have there are Tommy Toy figures. Tommy Toy actually is out of Union, New Jersey. So we're going to be taking them home to Hackensack, which is very close to Hackensack. Tommy Toy made a number of military figures, but they also did a big line of civilian figures, including their nursery rhyme series. Bree, you have any idea how many nursery rhyme figures they made?
Well, we know that there was Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill. Actually, we have an example of Jack and Jill right here.
Jack and Jill. There was Little Miss Muffet.
Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet.
Peter Piper?
No Peter Piper. They did Tom Tom the Piper's son, which is similar, but a little different.
Okay. Humpty Dumpty?
Humpty Dumpty.
Who, by the way, we also
got a Humpty Dumpty.
We have a Humpty Dumpty.
He sat on the wall.
Which, now that I'm looking at this, you see, little...
Does he kind of remind you of someone here? There might be a little resemblance.
Maybe. But Humpty Dumpty's also a dime store figure. He's also holocast, so he belongs to this little family too. We have a scarecrow. very cute. His eyes are a little creepy, but I feel like, you know, I mean...
And it's Halloween.
It's Halloween. So he fits the mold. And then we also have Man Carrying Pumpkin, which we have not one, not two, but three of them. And two of them have little white shirts on, or white sleeved shirts. These pumpkins look pretty heavy, actually, by the way.
It looks like he's struggling.
And they were made by a company called Man Oil.
And Man Oil was out of Waverly, New York. Waverly's right on the border between PA and New York, sort of midway between New York City and Buffalo. And they were one of the larger manufacturers of dime store soldiers. Tommy Toy, in general, wasn't a very large manufacturer. I think they only produced for about 4 years. Whereas Man Oil was one of the biggest, and then the largest of all of them was Barclay. Those are the ones that are distinguished by a tin hat. We don't have any at the moment right here. But those sort of encompass all the dime store toy soldiers. You know why they were called dime stores?
I do not, actually.
Because they originally were sold in dime stores, 5
wow.
and 10s. So originally they started at a nickel a piece, then they went up to a dime, and then in the 60s, most of them sold for about a quarter. And that's a lot of kids, especially anyone in their 70s and 80s now, they'll remember them. They remember getting their allowance or going out and shoveling snow and then running down to the 5 and 10 store. And they'd have large displays set up on the wall, and they'd go in, and these would be sold individually. So very rarely were these sold in sets. They were always sold by an individual figure. Now the Man Oil figures, the Tommy Toys, there were 10 different ones, but the Man Oils, there was actually 28 of these. Are called the Happy Farm series. So it's a lot of people like working on the farm. You got to be very happy when you work on a farm. It's hard work. So at the show, there will be, at this show in particular, Hackensack, there are probably about 250 to 300 dealers. It's in a big event center. It's a very large show. There are thousands and thousands of toy soldiers. There'll be all types of dime store soldiers, which will bring back a lot of memories for anyone born between 1920 and 1960.
And I know that I've seen some before too, and we pulled the Halloween themed ones for the spirit of this broadcast and for this show. But they also have military figures and little, all different types of uniforms, and so this isn't all that they produced, but I just wanted to note that because there are different ones
Exactly.
that I've seen. And also, we'd like to show you, now this is a Jack and Jill.
Again, part of the Tommy Toys series.
It is part of Tommy Toys, but I will show you the first huge difference between this figure, and I'm going to hold the other one up so that you can see it, and this figure is that this one is actually a reproduction. It's not an original. The reason we're showing you is just so that you can see them side by side. Now, besides the hole in the bottom, the second big telltale sign that this is a reproduction is that it is very heavy. So as compared to this one, because it's hollow and this one isn't, that is, to me, when you're picking it up, and you can also see what was written on the bottom of this one too, which makes it easy, but it says 2003. So that's really the difference between the two.
Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit. Jack and Jill is actually an extremely rare dime store figure, the original. There are perhaps maybe 7 or 8 of them known to exist, so it's really very rare. There's a gentleman in Iowa named Ron Eccles that produces a line of dime stores, and he also then reproduced this figure along with a number of the other Tommy Toy figures, and he marked them very clearly on the bottom. However, that mark very often will get worn off, especially this figure is relatively clean, so it's easy to tell, but a lot of times if they're sort of beat up or been dragged through the drawers and have a lot of chips, it can be much more difficult. But Bree was exactly right. This is a solid cast figure as opposed to the originals, which were hollow cast. The hollow casting, they would pour the lead into a mold. They would let it just set up for a couple seconds, and then they turn the mold over. The molten lead would run out, and you're left with the shell. It's sort of a difficult thing to master, and the way that these were originally produced, the guys casting them produced hundreds of thousands of them. So it was just sort of by doing that number, they were very attuned to the temperature of the lead, casting it, knowing exactly how many seconds to let it set up, and then turning it over. Much easier to produce a solid cast figure. In general, any figure that's solid cast made after 1900, most likely is a reproduction. There are exceptions, and a lot of times what people will tell me is they'll have solid cast figures, especially in the 20s and 30s. They made, they're called home casting sets. And that's where you would actually buy molds, give them to your children to play with molten lead, which is always nice in around 1920s.
That sounds safe.
It's very safe. And those you'd actually cast your figures at home. Again, those figures will be solid. Generally, solid figures have very little value. The exceptions are pre-1900. That's right when the first figures were produced, and those figures can be very valuable. But if you pick up a figure and it feels super heavy, you should investigate it further.
Very good. So those are the dime store figures that we have. And now we're going to move on to some Britain's Railway sets. We have 2 of them, and I am going to hold them up one by one. This is the first one. It's going to flash the label for you. It is an original box.
We'll do them side by side.
Okay.
Grab the other one over there, Bree.
Okay, here's the other one. So these are Britain's, like I said. They're made in London, and both of them include not only railway staff, but suitcases and a station master, ticket collector, trolleys, and all kinds of luggage along with them. And these are what we call civilian figures. So they fit into that category as far as soldiers are concerned.
We'll show them the figures, and I'll give you a little description here.
So this is the first one with the green lid, and as you can see, I can't lift it all the way up for you just because I don't want them to fall forwards, but these are the luggage that I'm talking about, the little carts, the ticket master, and anyone really that you would set up, and these look very nice. Oh, I lost a little luggage guy.
That's okay.
They look very nice set up next to trains and around that type of set.
And then show them the other side, and then I'll show
Okay.
you the interesting part is.
So here is the other one. Similar, but a little bit different.
They're larger scale. So that's the main difference. Essentially the same label.
I'm going to take a figure out of here so I can actually...
because we're going to compare
What I'm
them.
going to do is take one out of both.
compare the
as you
two.
can see.
Okay, the figure, the larger figure is Britain's standard scale. Those are 54 millimeter figures, which generally Britain's were made for gauge 1 railway sets. They also produced this exact same set, labeled set number 1256, for O gauge, a smaller scale. Britain's didn't produce too many figures in that scale. Both sets are really relatively rare. The O gauge is sort of one of the few times that Britain's actually changed the scale of its figures, I believe, in hopes to actually sell more figures. So these 2 in particular, Britain's didn't make a huge number of railway sets. They made about 6 different railway sets. But these just sort of, they're nice to see them side by side because there are 2 scales. But the standard Britain scale is this one, 54 millimeter.
The larger one.
And that's 95%, 97% of Britain's are all this larger scale. So if you collect trains, this show again is an excellent place to come. There'll be a lot of figures that you can use for your train boards. You know, it's a really good place to sort of go and root around through various boxes and find what you like for your display.
They're really neat, and I personally think that these type of figures really just bring trains to life. I mean, even with train stations, and it just really makes a difference, I feel like, especially when you have them displayed on a shelf.
It does.
I think they're really neat. And is there one that is there a scale that you prefer, Ray?
Well, I mean, if you collect Britain's, you're basically collecting 54 millimeter. I don't know, is there a scale that I prefer? It really depends on what you collect and what it goes best with. But gauge 1 is what Britain's was based all around, and that's essentially what all their figures are based off of.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay. So those are our railway set stations.
What do we got next? We're going on to something rare.
Next, we are going on to another Britain set. It is the King's Royal Rifle Corps. It is this is the top of the box. And I will be able to lift this up to show you a little closer as well. It's a first version set. It is actually from 1896. And these little guys on their rifles, they actually have what are called movable arms.
and this is kind of difficult for me to do from this angle, but their arms, if you do move their little rifles, they do move up and down a little bit. And I'm going to ask, Ray, how can you tell that this set is a first version set?
Well, there's a number of things that you're going to look at, and again, essentially this all comes out of reference books. But Britain started producing in 1893. They still produce today. Generally, what's considered the top of the pyramid for collectors are what are known as first version sets. They're the very first incarnation of that set. This set, I believe, started being produced in 1896. And as a first version, they produced it until about 1902. A lot of things that you're going to look for a first version. Okay, these figures, they're called pigeon-chested. Okay, and Bree, take a look at that. Show that to them. The reason they're called pigeon-chested is their chest looks like that of a pigeon. Makes sense?
It does look like a pigeon. I saw a pigeon today walking down the sidewalk here in New York.
We're in New York. I saw millions of pigeons. That's not a rare animal around here.
I know, they're cute. I like animals.
So the other things you're looking at for first version, they're oval based. Later on, Britons would actually produce a base that was square, and this actually has an oval shape to it. They do have movable arms. These are called at the carry, spiked helmets. Again, this set went through some incarnations. So what makes this first version, oval base, pigeon-chested with a spiked helmet. Later, they would actually have large plumes on them. They went to a square base. They became more of an upright figure. So that's what you're looking at in the figure. The other thing that's sort of interesting with this set, can you pass me the lid there, Bree? Mm-hmm. Okay, the first versions, they never had an end label on the set. So the set actually will be empty on the end here. It doesn't really say anything. The set number is actually listed on the corner.
98 for this one.
Set number 98. And the other thing that a lot of people think is incorrect, but it's the way Britain's first produced, is if you look at this, the figures are actually slotted into the base of the box bottom. So there's actually slots there that they would slide into. That is correct. That's the way Britain's first produced them. And then to hold the figures in place.
Those are the little slots.
See that how that worked?
That's
and it doesn't look right, but it is right.
That's actually the bottom of the figures
sticking through the box.
Through right there.
And they would actually fill the box with what's called Excelsior, which was sort of like a shredded wood. You'll see it in some packing today, but they basically took wood shavings. The figures would be nestled in that, and then with the bases slotted into the box. So again, this is usually the type of set that the advanced collectors gravitate toward. It's one of the most rare and desirable of all the types of Britons. You come by our booth, you can take a close look at it.
Yes. Okay.
Right, what are we going to move on to?
So we are moving on to a Norris set. It is a Prussian Band, and it has a beautiful label on it.
Some of these early German sets, and these are pre-1900, really a big factor to collecting them are the labels. Their labels were stone lithographed. They're usually very colorful. Not all the time, but Norris in particular did some beautiful labels. Hafner did beautiful labels. There's another manufacturer named Amon. And a lot of people will collect just for the labels itself. So I do highly recommend that if you're going into early figures, the boxes very often will have the most beautiful art that really will contribute to the set. And if you show the set, this is an interesting set here.
Yes.
This is a Prussian Band. It's actually a smaller scale.
Okay.
So again, these are like those HO figures.
I can't lift these all the way up, but I'm going to kind of go like this, and then I'm going to lift one out so that you can see.
That's a Prussian Band with music stands. So you can set it up, and they're actually playing. Very rare. A lot of collectors prefer bands. You can see how each musician has its own little stand that goes with it. And Norris is one of the more desirable manufacturers. Norris actually was a trade name, so other manufacturers would produce it, but then they would be boxed under Norris. These figures probably were made by Heinrichsen, but then boxed by Norris. So again, very early. Right now, early German figures seem to be some of the most popular and collectible figures. There's a big groundswell to actually buy these figures. Many of them are still coming out of Europe and Germany in particular, but they are always quite interesting.
They're really neat. The little music stands are so intricate. It almost looks like they have sheet music on them. As you can see. Very cool. I really like that one. Okay.
All right.
So following that one, we are going to move on to
the big guns. We're bringing out the big guns.
Big guns. We're moving on to a Markland gun. So I'm going to bring this closer to you so that you can see while Ray talks a little bit more about it.
Okay, that is a Markland coastal gun. Markland was one of the largest German manufacturers and probably the most desirable of all the German manufacturers. They produced all types of toys, boats, trains, guns in particular, automobiles, baby carriages, vendors' carts, carousels, you name it, they sort of produced it. They are characterized by very high craftsmanship and detail. This gun here is actually the largest of the coastal guns. There's two smaller sizes of this, and then there's a number of different variations. You can tell the largest of the series, they have two staircases, one coming up from each side. This is where the gunners would walk up. The ammunition would be held here. This crane is actually a working crane. That's how they would hoist the ammunition up from the ground and then actually hoist it into the gun. These guns were actually live fire, so they're carbide guns. So this would come off.
This actually works?
This actually works. This is your car. Ooh, I almost shot someone there.
Luckily, there's no one.
This breech it's called a breech mechanism, and this one's all complete. You would actually fill it with carbide, which is basically like a black powder. It would actually take a small little projectile. You'd fill it up, and then the big brother would shoot the little brother. Quite fun. Very intricate. Elevation wheels that work. Rotational wheels that make it go around. Locking mechanisms on the other side.
So neat.
I mean, there's a huge amount of detail to these guns. They're very, very popular.
So it's kind of like a Nerf gun, but with real
That's the way
metal.
That's the way they used to play. That's when kids were kids. These guns almost always are marked on the base Markland.
Okay.
See if you can show that to them, Bree. But they're usually stamped Markland. This one is sort of difficult to see.
This is where he's talking about right here. I don't know if you can see that with the glare, but... And hello, Win. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. They're loving the show, right?
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Win. So they're almost always marked, and then there's a lot of different incarnations. The earliest guns actually were painted in like a horizon blue, and they'd have blue detailing on them. Then they went to the green. The blue ones are generally right around 1905. This would probably be about 1913 or 14. This is actually a brass barrel, but later on they would actually go to a sheet steel barrel. There are many, many variations of this gun and the other sizes of it. I shouldn't say many, but 3 or 4 of each size. And people love these. You can load it up with figures. We have a little figure here. You have a figure. So
I'll grab this one just for purpose. But
yeah, but you can actually go on the catwalk.
You can put them on here. You can put them on the steps.
People like using these with their boats. There's a lot of cross collectibles that go with these guns. People really, enjoy them. It's one of my favorite pieces. They're very showy. It makes a very nice display.
It is very showy. I can't actually believe that those were shot at each. You could shoot those at each other.
You could shoot it at each other. That you could.
That's pretty.
A lot of those guns are like. If you look at it, it's hard to tell. But this is all machined brass. Again, this is machined steel here.
This is what would go inside.
That's actually what you put the charge. So you'd actually put the charge. You'd pack the charge in here with it basically would be a carbide with like a little firing cap, and then you put your projectile in there and essentially load it like they actually loaded the regular gun. So it would actually go in here. Oh, like this. Like that. They close the breech on it. You flick the lever on the bum and it go boom. Shoot it out.
That's really neat. So the lever that he's talking about is right down here.
It's a very complicated breech mechanism. That's what they call it. So that's the way they load and fire them.
Okay.
but a great piece.
Very cool.
A lot of fun.
I could definitely see that on the corner of a mantle or next to a big boat. So
Exactly.
very cool. Okay, we're gonna end our last little item that we're featuring
One of
today.
Bree's favorite figures.
Let me explain. He's kind of quirky and silly, but that's
why she
I love
likes
him.
him.
And I'll bring him a little closer to you. And see, isn't he so
Bree, what's he
cute?
called?
His name is Sir Creamy Nut.
That's Sir Creamy Nut. You know who Sir
Which-
Creamy Nut was?
I actually don't know who he was, but he stands out to me
Well,
because
give me
he's
your
so
favorite figure if
cute.
you don't know who he was.
Well, look at him.
Well, he is very adorable. Sir Creamy Nut was made by Britons, and actually, Sir Creamy Nut was a logo for, I believe it's Sharp's Toffee, which was a toffee company in England, and that was their advertising logo, Sir Creamy Nut. And there are a number of manufacturers that made incarnations. Royal Dalton would do Sir Creamy Nut, but because we do soldiers, Britons did Sir Creamy Nut. And for some reason, we just like saying that name.
He's just cute. I mean, I think that you could have gone as him for Halloween too.
I think I still may.
I think
just
maybe
a
tomorrow we just need to
derby,
go.
a monocle, and a cane. I'll be in good shape.
No, and it looks like a little bow tie. I mean,
Look, his bow tie matches his socks. That's so cute.
but
It
yeah.
is.
So that's Sir Creamy Nut. Okay, so really exciting for tomorrow. We are doing a giveaway, and if you are anywhere near the show, the East Coast Toy Soldier show, if you missed the beginning, we're going to be there tomorrow from 9 to 3. It's right off of Route 4 in Hackensack, New Jersey, and admission's $7 for adults, free for kids under 12. If you're coming, the first 4 people that come over to our booth and mention our Facebook Live broadcast from tonight are going to receive a Old Toy Soldier hat. So they're super cool. They're embroidered on the front, flat brim snapback. They say #Old Toy Soldier, and they're really fun.
That
And-
they are. If you weren't dressed as a cat, you'd be able to put it on.
I know. You can, though. See, you can wear it backwards, too, which is cool. So, very cool. But,
Am I one
yes.
of the kids now?
So, the first... Yes. Blend right in.
I'm sure I do.
So, the first 4 people that stop by the booth tomorrow between 9 and 3 receive one of these awesome hats and mention Facebook Live. That's the key. You had to have at least heard of our broadcast from tonight. So, that's really exciting.
I
And
hope to see you
hopefully-
there.
Yeah, we hope to see a couple people there tomorrow. And we have a couple other announcements. So next weekend, we're going to be in Allentown at Ag Hall at the Allentown Toy Show. We're also going to have a booth there. And we're going to try to do a live broadcast before that show as well. So that's next Saturday, November 5th. And we hope to see you there. And following that, our next 2 auctions. The first one is Cyber Toy Auctions on November 12th. It's going to feature Keystone Toys and Banks. And then after that, the next 2 Old Toy Soldier auctions are going to be November 13th, which features Fresh Toy Soldiers. And then December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, which features a lot of different manufacturers. Way too many for me to name off the top of my
Well,
head.
the big draw on that one's the Dr. Bill Volter collection.
Yes.
He collected essentially only mint tied in box sets, primarily from the 40s and 50s and early 60s, but everything on his day, which is day 2 of the sale, is about as mint as it's going to come. It's never been out of the box. It's near perfect. And then on Sunday, we have the Dave Powell's collection, and he loved American troops. So all different manufacturers, but everything are American infantry or cavalry, American tanks. It had to be American for him to collect it. And again, he was a conditioned fanatic. So he really strove to, only buy the very, very finest out there. And that's going to be a great day too. And the first day, Bree, we have a big diverse day where we have a lot of Courtney figures. We have some Vertuni. We have all types of Tempo. We have some new manufacturers, Tradition. I believe we also have Imperial,
Yes.
Trophy. So
There are a
it's
lot.
going to be a big holiday sale, so I hope everyone can tune in for that.
Yes, and we will be doing live broadcasts November 11th and probably December 1st or 2nd, so right before the December sale. So we are going to feature a couple lots in those sales. You can jump on liveauctioneers.com and type in Old Toy Soldier Auctions. Our next sales will come right up on there, and you can also search Cyber Toy Auctions on there as well. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in tonight, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Be safe, eat lots of delicious
I'm
candies,
sure you will.
and
She loves candy.
I do love candy, just a little bit. And we'll see you tomorrow in Hackensack.
See everyone there.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.